this man that invited me to the Baptists, Torkel Tyleskär Jensen, I think his name is. His origin was from Denmark. He gave me the Word of God and told me to read it. And I said, all right. And the first things that occurred to me when I began to read was, God, there's no discussion about whether you would exist or not. God proclaimed himself. He just said, this is the way, and this is the way, and this is the way. And it's like this and like that. And I thought to myself that, well, people would think that I'm stupid believing in all these kind of things, but that's all the same. Because I had seen people becoming healed, received the new birth. I found people that had been drug addicts that had prayed to Jesus and he had washed them clean from all their addiction. I had seen people going crippled into church and going out straight without the shoes they wore before, because the shoe soles that they were they were adapted to a shorter leg and a longer leg, and they couldn't use those shoes anymore. I saw this happen. And I got acquainted with these people, and they weren't lunatics. A lunatic, I'd been working at a psychiatrical hospital also as a medical aide. And those people aren't lunatics that you meet that has experienced these kind of things. So I began reading the Word of God, and the more I read, the more I visited different kind of churches, the more I began to feel that I should ask God what I should do in His kingdom, because I didn't feel called to do anything that the average Swedes were doing. Helping the street people, the homeless, different kind of organizations, etc. So I was walking the streets of Uppsala and asked God, what do you want me to do in your kingdom? Because I don't feel called to doing this and that and whatever they do. And I heard the words of the Apostle Paul when he wrote that when you come to Christ, remain in the situation which you are in when you receive Jesus, because you've got a toolbox, sort of. So all right, I said, all right, what have I got? I've got a language, I've got this and that, and the first things that I noticed was the language. I didn't speak Swedish at home, I spoke this Latvian language. And I said to God directly, God, I will not go to that hell. Because I knew what they did over there. Deported people, forced them to do their wars in Afghanistan, and etc. Oppressed the Christians. I heard God say, in Swedish, He said, you don't believe in me. Oh God, I said, I do believe in you. No, you don't believe in me. Oh, I don't trust you. Right, I'll go. So I packed my suitcase. There was a prayer group in Stockholm, a Bible study group. They knew about me. I came to them back and forth. It's 1 hour's car journey away, northward of Stockholm, where I lived. And then I told them my thoughts about going to Latvia. And was doing the Iron Curtain age. It was strictly militarized, 1982, the summer of 82. I went and I just shuffled down all the praise songs that I had in cassette tapes, my Bible, cassette tape recorder, and other kind of similar things, which I have heard they were in need of. In the customs in Estonia, we went from Stockholm to Tallinn, changed ship, from Tallinn to from Helsinki, from Helsinki to Tallinn, and we jumped off there, where a bus met us, and we went to Riga. It's about 5 hours journey. And the first thing that happened in the customs, they poured out the Bible, lots of the cassette tapes, and said in a loud voice, "Oh, so you are a Christian, are you?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And the rest of them in the queue behind me, they almost did in their pants, because this life with Jesus, it's like the parable where Jesus says that it's like a candle which you light, you put up on the cupboard to make it give light in all of the room you have. You can't hide. I couldn't hide anywhere. It was just presence of God and His mercy that would be capable of helping me. This I understood the first thing. And so the first day off, I went to the church. I chose the Baptist church because I heard their praise songs in Sweden. I received a cassette tape from Germany. There was a pastor, a Pentecostal pastor, Paul Sklaving, and he had his broadcasts in radio, and he had mixed his speeches with praise songs from Latvia, and I had never ever heard praise songs in my own language. Well, I heard these psalms. You could stand up and sit down in church and sort of these kind of songs, but I'd never heard praise songs about Jesus. I heard them in English, Swedish, German, those languages which I understood, but I never ever heard them in my own language, so I wept convulsively the first time I ever heard them. So I understood that I would go to these Christians and I will help them. Those were the youngsters from the Baptist Church of Matthew in Matthew Street 53, 55. I received the address from those in Stockholm, so I went there. I entered the church. It was opened. Nobody was there. I stepped up the stairs because I heard somebody. And they probably were told that I would come. Those from Stockholm had told them. And I entered a room where the youngsters had rehearsal, praise song rehearsal. And they sang the song which I loved the most, the song which I was the most fond of, which I heard Irish Christians sing. The Fisherfolk were their name. So I brought all their praise songs with me to give them. And they picked, unknowingly, the praise song that I loved the most. Here Comes Jesus, Sing Walking on Water. Well, once again I felt like weeping convulsively, but I couldn't do that. I had to hit myself in front of, strange people, different people, unknown people. But God greeted me, of course, by telling me that wherever I would be on earth, that I would be definitely welcome here. So I began smuggling Bibles to Latvia. I began to help them with the praise songs. I began to help them materially. So I found Christians there that did meet me, because many people were scared, and those that actually were suffering the most were the non-Christians, the non-believers, because they were afraid. They had no God that helped them. And what actually I found later on was that God actually helped His children, and they had noticed this, so they weren't afraid. This was the reason why they dared to be witnesses and speak boldly. And they knew the new birth. That grouping in Latvia were the ones that knew it the best. They knew to tell who was a Christian, who was not. And I got acquainted with people there. And actually I think what I did was I helped them in a manner more that KGB saw me coming and knew whom I visited and let them alone. And well, this was so infusing of, it was so great, it was so wonderful to see this. So I went back to Sweden. I understood that I will do this the rest of my life. I didn't expect the Soviet Union to break together and just, the communism to erode. I didn't think I would experience it. I didn't think I would see it. I didn't care much about it. Instead, I filled my bags, suitcases, and went twice a year. I financed it all myself, and actually God helped me. I had my birthday in the middle of summer, so my relatives gave me money, my pa, mom, etc. And I went, and after Christmas I received also money from all my relatives. So I went during New Year. I wasn't financed by any organizations or anything. Instead, I had to learn to listen to God, because I knew I couldn't make it become a reality what I wanted to achieve to help these people being oppressed if I didn't get acquainted with God and experience His prayer answers and His help, and for Him to speak and for Him to arrange things for me. So I had to get acquainted with God definitely, if ever anything else. What I did was, it was tricky to get in literature. Once you got it in, I found somebody translating it. I paid them. I found somebody else copying the book. They put 6 carbon papers in a typewriter and 6 papers and hammered it hard. Got 6 copies with written in one each every side and book bound them. And those were the books I received, and I paid for them. And I was, they called it samizdat in Russian. It's underground literature. But KGB, they wanted, it was during Chernenko. I was one of their big smart Alex, the leaders in Moscow, so they had to take some of their tourists and inquire them. I was actually absurd. All the society was so backward and screwed. You had huge advertisement signs all over. Communism, the future of the people. Such kind of crap. But if you took them down, you receive 5 years directly in jail, and then they will stamp you for the rest of your life. They will mob you out in newspapers, and they will terrorize you. You wouldn't get educations, and etc., etc. But so of course it tickled in your fingers to tear such disgusting things down. But so it was a hypocrisy society, full with hypocrisy, where violence from the KGB was the one that forced people to be obedient. And they had their new leader, Brezhnev. He stretched on his pedals and died. And this Chernenko came, and he was one of those former KGB officers. So he wanted to, he gave orders that they would inquire each and every tourist. And of course, I would be an interesting object to inquire a little bit, because they understood I was a Christian, and they saw to whom I went. They wanted to feel, squeeze me a little bit, who I am. They invited me for a coffee, sort of, in their visa department. But they were afraid of me. And they were polite, but they still wanted to ask me lots of questions, which I answered in a way that the goat was alive and the wolf was fed, sort of. And, God helped me so that I didn't tell them more than they should know. And they let me go. Because they had more political problems than they had with me, and they didn't understand me. They didn't understand what I was doing. Let me all alone, just. So I just continued doing what I did. And actually it was quite tricky, because KGB followed you after you all the time. And I asked God, what would I do with these ones? Because I don't want to show them whom I am visiting. So many times God does funny things, which many of us, we have perhaps had our own children, and who of us have not given our children money for them to buy us a present? And so does God in a similar way. He told me, ask me and I will give to you.